One of the most frustrating things I hear from cleared professionals is this: Tony, I keep hearing about jobs after somebody else already gets them. Maybe you've said something similar. You log into LinkedIn, somebody posts that they're excited to announce that they've accepted a new role at ABC company, or maybe one of your friends tells you, yeah, they filled that role last week. And you're sitting there thinking, wait a second, I never even saw that job posted. So what the heck happened? Did you miss it? Did they forget to post it? Or is there something else going on? After 17 years of recruiting in the cleared community, I can tell you that there's a part of the hiring process most people never see. And honestly, that's where a lot of the hiring actually happens. See, most candidates think that the hiring process starts with a job posting. I don't. I think that's often the middle part of the process. Sometimes it's the end. By the time a role shows up on clearance jobs or LinkedIn or even a company website, there's a really good chance conversations have already been happening behind the scenes. Recruiters have already called people that they know. Hiring managers have already asked, who do we already have? Referrals have already started coming in, and sometimes the position gets filled before the rest of the market even knows it. Now, before you hear that and think, well, I guess I just don't know the right people, right? That's not going to be the lesson, because the hidden job market isn't something exclusive. It's not an exclusive club where only insiders get access. It is much simpler than that. It's built on relationships. And the good news is relationships are something every one of us can build. So today, I want to pull back the curtain, that layer of the onion, if you will, on how the job market actually works in the cleared community. Not networking advice that you've heard 100 times. You can go look that up on LinkedIn somewhere. I'm talking about what recruiters actually do when a new requirement lands on their desk, and why some candidates get called before a job is ever posted, and what you can start doing today. So you're one of those people next time an opportunity comes along. Welcome back to Beyond the So let's start with a question here, okay? Where do you think that the hiring process actually begins? If you're like most people, you'd probably say when the company posts the job. Honestly, I used to think that's how most candidates saw it too. They wake up, they open LinkedIn, they check clearance jobs, maybe check a few company websites, find something interesting, apply, and then crickets. They wait. Hear nothing. Can I tell you something? From the recruiter's side of the desk, that's usually not where the story begins. Think about it for a second. Let's say a program manager walks into my office today or picks up the phone and says, Tony, I just lost one of my systems engineers, or maybe we just want a new piece of work and I need 2 software engineers as quickly as possible. What's the first thing that you think that I do? Do I immediately write a job description? Do I post it on LinkedIn? Wait for applications to roll in? Not usually. The first thing that I do is I ask myself a question. Who do I already know? What's my low-hanging fruit? Who have I already talked to recently? Who's been looking? Who has the right clearance? Who told me that they'd be interested if the right opportunity came along? That's where I start. Not because I'm trying to hide the opportunity, because it's naturally faster, right? Time to fill. That's a metric that I carry myself on and I pride myself on 100%. So think about it. If I already know 3 qualified candidates, why would I wait several days for applications to come in? I'm calling those people first. And if one of those conversations turns into a hire, that position will get posted with someone already in mind for the role. Even when I've got like 1 million applications online come through, okay? By the way, I still call those people. I make sure that everyone gets reviewed before you move forward in the pipeline or you move on. This whole thing about an ATS rejecting you, in my opinion, is not true. I know you're going to mention and throw at me the Workday lawsuit. For me, on my side of the ATS, I still press a button to either move you forward or to move on from you, and you get for lack of a better way of saying it, a rejection email from the company, if you will, okay? Now, does that happen every single time? No, of course not, okay? A lot of jobs absolutely make it to job boards. I've posted thousands of them over my career, but here's what I want you to understand. The posting often isn't the beginning of the hiring process. Sometimes it's the middle. Sometimes it's the last step before we widen the search. It's a very different way to think about it. And honestly, once you understand that, your job search starts to change. Because instead of asking what's been posted today, you start asking who already knows that I'm looking. Those are two completely different strategies. Now, before you think this is all about having a huge network, trust me, it isn't. I think people hear the word networking and immediately picture walking into a conference with a stack of business cards or a stack of resumes. No, that's not what I'm talking about here, okay? I'm talking about relationships, real conversations. The recruiter you spoke with 3 months ago, maybe even a year ago, the former coworker who now works somewhere else, the hiring manager you met at an industry event, the teammate that you deployed with 5 years ago that's essentially now leading a program. Okay, who knows? Those relationships become incredibly valuable because when a requirement lands, people naturally think about the people they already know. That's human nature. And recruiters are no different. And can I give you another perspective here? Let's say two candidates are equally qualified. Same clearance, similar experience, same certifications, everything, okay? One applied through the company website this morning. The other one is someone I spoke with 2 weeks ago who's already told me exactly what they're looking for. Who do you think I'm calling first? Probably the person I already know. Not because that they're better in any way, shape, or form, because we already have momentum. I already know their salary expectations. I already know when they're available. I already know what kinds of roles interest them. We've already done the hard part of the work. That's why those relationships matter, not because they're exclusive, because it's efficient, right? And I think one of the biggest mindset shifts that I can give you is this. The hidden job market isn't hidden because someone's keeping secrets. That's not what we do. It's hidden because conversations happen before postings. And once you understand that, in my opinion, you stop treating the job board like a starting line. You start treating it as one tool in a much bigger strategy. Okay, so let's say that a new requirement lands on my desk today. I've talked to the hiring manager. I understand the clearance. The clearance. I understand the skill set, the location, the salary. Now what? Do I immediately jump into our ATS? Do I post the job? I don't post the job. I might jump into our ATS for sure from candidates that have applied to before. But the first thing that I do is something that you can't see. I started thinking. Think about that for a second. I'm literally sitting there asking myself, who do I already know? Who has this skill set? Who's already told me that they're open to hearing about the right opportunity? Who lives close enough to commute? Who's looking for exactly this kind of work? That process happens before I type a single thing. And honestly, it only takes a minute or two. Now, here's the part I think that surprises people, okay? The candidates who come to mind first, they are not always the most qualified, okay? They're the ones that I've talked to recently. It's I guess, recency bias, for lack of a better way of saying, okay? Now, again, before anybody gets upset, I haven't checked the comments. If anybody is typing any comments in there right now, I want to say this. I want you guys to hear me out here, okay? Again, let's say I've got two software engineers. One has 20 years of experience, and the other one, let's just say they have 15, okay? They're both technically qualified. The difference between the two is I talked to one of them last week, and the other one I haven't heard from in almost a year. Who do you think that I'm going to call first? Probably the person that I talked to last week. And it's not because that they are a better engineer, because I already know that they're interested. I know what they're looking for. I know their salary expectations, and I know whether they're willing to drive to Annapolis Junction or Fort Meade, for example. I know if they want hybrid. I know whether they'll do on-site or remote. I've already done a lot of the legwork. God, if I can't stress enough how important that is, that matters. You know, I don't think candidates realize how many moving parts recruiters are actually managing. At any given time, I might be working 20, 30, sometimes even more openings at a time between different program managers, okay? I'm talking to candidates, meeting with hiring managers, scheduling interviews, writing submissions, negotiating offers, following up on people who are already in the process. There's a lot going on, okay? So when a requirement comes in, my brain naturally goes to the people I already have good information on. In no way, shape, or form is that favoritism. In my opinion, that's efficiency. Okay. Now, here's where I think people make this harder than it needs to be. Okay. They assume that they need to check in every single week. Hey, Tony, just seeing if anything's opened up. Hey, Tony, anything new? You don't need to do that. Okay. Honestly, I don't want you to do that. Okay. What I want, what I do want from you is for you to stay current. Okay. Let's say you earn a new certification. Cool. Tell me. I'd appreciate that. You finish a major project. Tell me. You decide you're finally open to relocating. Tell me. Maybe your timeline changes because your current contract is ending. Tell me. Those are meaningful updates. Those are things that I can actually use. Now, when the next opportunity comes in, I'm not trying to remember where you are in your career. I already know. Okay. I already know. All right. So let me give you something practical here. Okay. I think about it as a 90-day window. If we've had a meaningful conversation sometime in the last couple of months, you're probably fresh in my mind. If it's been 9 months or a year, probably going to have to go searching for you again. Okay. That doesn't mean that I forgot about you. It just means that you're no longer top of mind. And that's true of all of us. That's true for all of us, if you will. Okay. Think about your own life. If someone that you haven't talked to in 2 years suddenly calls, it takes you a minute to remember where they work, what they're doing, whether they're still in the same city, if you will. Okay. Recruiters are no different. So instead of thinking, how do I stay on a recruiter's radar? Maybe ask yourself a different question. How do I make it easy for a recruiter to remember where I am in my career? That's a much, much better question, okay? Because staying visible doesn't require constant communication. It requires meaningful communication. And those are two very different things, okay? So at this point, you might be thinking, well, that's great, Tony. Cool. All right. But what if I'm not one of the people recruiters already know? Fair question, 100%, okay? And honestly, it's one that I hear a lot, okay? People assume there's some secret club, right? For all you conspiracy theorists out there that believe in secret clubs and secret societies and all that weird stuff. Anyway, that's a side note. They believe that recruiters have this list of favorite candidates that they never let anyone else into, okay? I can tell you from my experience, that is not how it works, okay? Recruiters are always looking to meet good people. Always. Good recruiters. I should preface that by saying that, okay? Because here's the reality. I don't know when my next requirement is coming. Neither does the hiring manager. Contract gets awarded, someone resigns, funding changes, a customer suddenly says we need another engineer. When that happens, I'm hoping I've already built relationships with people who might be a fit. So the question isn't, how do I get into the club? The question is, how do I start the relationship? Can I give you an example here, right, real quick? Let's say that you've had your eye on a particular company, okay? Maybe it's one that you've wanted to work for many, many years, okay? Most people wait until they see the perfect job posted. They apply, then they send the recruiter a message. I think you've got it backwards, okay, in my opinion. Why not introduce yourself before you need something? Think about it. How much easier is it for me to remember someone I've already had a conversation with compared to someone I've never heard from before? Now, that doesn't mean that you send recruiters message that say something along the lines of, hey, I just wanted to introduce myself in case something comes up someday. That is not very memorable that I tell all the people that I work with all the time. Instead, what I would recommend is give them a reason to remember you. Maybe you saw one of their LinkedIn posts and had a thoughtful question. Maybe you're genuinely curious about the type of work they recruit for. Maybe you've been following one of their programs and want a better understanding of the skill sets that they typically hire. That's huge because for me, I focused primarily on recruiting full scope poly candidates for a specific agency out in Fort Meade. A previous job that I had was specifically full scope polys for a specific agency in Langley, okay? People are going to work different things. They're going to specialize in certain things. It's important to ask those questions, okay? Those are conversations that you can have, okay? They're not transactions. Don't be transactional here, okay? And people respond differently to conversations than they do requests, okay? Here's something that I think also gets overlooked, okay? Warm introductions. All right, let me tell you something about this, okay? If someone I trust reaches out and says, Tony, you've got to meet the systems engineer. I've worked with her for 4 years, and she's one of the best people that I've ever had on my team. I'm going to take that call. Not every recruiter will, but personally, I'm going to take that call immediately. Not because I'm blindly trusting someone else's opinion, but because that trust transfers, okay? That's how relationships work. And here's the mistake that I see people make. They ask for introductions that are way too broad. Can you introduce me to anyone at company X? That's hard, right? People don't know where to send you. What I would recommend is trying something a little bit more specific. I noticed company X is hiring systems engineers supporting DISA. Do you happen to know anyone on that team who would be willing to share what it's like working there? Do you see the difference? Now the person helping you has direction. They know who they're trying to think of, okay? They know why you're asking. And they're much more likely to make the introduction. And one thing that I would encourage you to do is make it easy for the person who's helping you. If someone agrees to introduce you, don't make them write your story. Write it for them. 2 to 3 sentences. Who you are, what you do, the kind of opportunities you're exploring. That's it. Now, all they have to do is copy, they can paste, and hit send. Okay. You would be surprised. Let me put it that way. How many introductions never happened simply because people unintentionally create work for the person trying to help them? And here's one last thing. If someone makes an introduction for you, honor it. Respond quickly, show up prepared, follow through, because they're not just lending you their network, they're lending you their reputation. And in the cleared community, reputation travels fast. The person who made that introduction is putting their credibility on the line. Respect that, because if you do, you'll find people are much more willing to open doors for you again in the future. So, what do we talk about? We talked about how hiring really starts. We've talked about why recruiters call certain people first. We have talked about building relationships before you need them. Now let me answer what I think is the most important question. What should you actually do tomorrow? Because I don't want this to be one of those podcast episodes where you think, that was interesting, and then nothing changes, okay? Let's make this practical. The first thing that I would do is stop treating recruiters like vending machines. Think about that for a second. Too many people only reach out when they need a job. And the message almost always sounds the same. Hey, Tony, anything available? And the problem is there's no conversation there. There's no context. There's nothing for me to really work with. Instead, give me something useful. Maybe you just earned your Security Plus. Tell me. Maybe you wrapped up a huge cloud migration. Tell me. Talk about the brag file. Remember the brag file I spoke about last week. Bring something out from that update your brag file and pull something from that. Maybe your contract ends in 3 months. Tell me. Maybe you finally decided you're willing to relocate. Tell me. Those updates help me. They give me a reason to reopen your profile, update my notes, and immediately think about where you might fit. Now, here's the second thing that I would do. Pick 5 companies you would genuinely like to work for. Not 25, just 5. Learn what they do. Follow a few of the recruiters that work there and connect with people who actually work there as well. Maybe you have connections that work there as a small community. Not because you're trying to ask them for a job, but because you're trying to understand the business. You will be amazed how many opportunities come from simple curiosity. Okay? And here's the third thing. Every couple of months, reconnect with someone. Not because you need something, just reconnect. Maybe a former teammate, an old manager, a recruiter you had a good conversation with, someone you met at a conference. Relationships don't stay alive because of one conversation. They stay alive because both people occasionally reach out. And then here's the fourth thing. This might be the most important in my opinion. Start thinking long term. I think too many people approach networking like it's something that you do during a job search. And personally, I don't. I think it's something that you do during a career, because one conversation today may not lead to anything this month or even this year. But 6 months from now, a recruiter remembers your name. A former coworker becomes a hiring manager, a contract gets awarded, a position opens unexpectedly, and suddenly that relationship matters. Can I tell you one of my favorite parts about recruiting? Sometimes I'll call someone that I haven't spoken to in months, maybe even a year, and they'll laugh and say, Tony, your timing couldn't have been better. I was just starting to think about making a move. People always ask me, how'd you know? Honestly, I really didn't. The relationship was already there, and that's the point. The opportunity came later. So if you remember one thing from today's episode, remember this. Don't build relationships because you're looking for a job. Build relationships because you're building a career. Those are two completely different mindsets. One is temporary, and the other one compounds for decades. And that's exactly how the hidden job market works. It's not hidden because someone locked the door. It's hidden because opportunities almost always travel through relationships before they travel through job boards. And the good news, every one of us can start building those relationships today. So let me leave you with this. I hope this episode changed the way that you think about finding your next opportunity, because job boards still matter 100%. Applying online still matters. But if that's your entire strategy, you're only seeing part of the market. The strongest careers I've watched over the years weren't built by people who simply applied faster than everyone else. They were built by people who stayed connected, who built trust, who invested in relationships before they needed them. And when the right opportunity came along, they weren't introducing themselves for the first time. They were continuing a conversation they had already started. Cool. If this episode helped you see the hiring process a little bit differently, I'd appreciate if you share it with another cleared professional. Again, there's a good chance that they're spending hours refreshing job boards without realizing that there are other ways to position themselves for opportunities. And if we're not connected yet, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, where I share recruiting insights, trends, and practical advice for the cleared community throughout the week. Until next time, keep building relationships, keep investing in your reputation, and remember, your next opportunity may not start with a job posting. It may start with a conversation. I'll see you in the next episode.